You are listening to Talking Star Wars. Hello, I'm Connor.
And this is Alex.
And I think today we're going to talk about something special.
Yeah, so this is the first in our series of talking about spotlighting a certain expanded universe content, be that books, comics, shows, and usually it'll be something that Alex has read and Connor has not.
I can't read, so that's just for...
His illiteracy is a shame and we're working on it.
I need the moving pictures.
So, where Connor will ask me questions about this either great or terrible piece of expanded universe knowledge in the new Star Wars canon, and I will talk about it and explain it to all of you.
And we will reflect and take a look at how it stands up in the greater Star Wars context. So first question, what is our first spotlight media?
So, to go off of our previous topics about the Sith and Force lightning and history and the Emperor, I figured today we could talk about a novel called Lords of the Sith, released in 2017 and written by Paul S. Kemp.
I just realized that is the cover of that book is my work background wallpaper.
Yes,
Didn't even know.
Yeah, it depicts Palpatine with a bunch of Force lightning, stormtroopers in the background, Darth Vader with his lightsaber drawn. There's an AT-AT, even though one never appears in the book. So
it's color for the universe, you know.
Yeah, it's more about the metaphorical presence of the Fist of the Empire. Mm-hmm. But yes, this book is set. I would say it's deliberately vague about exactly when it is set, but probably 8 or so years before the Battle of Yavin. And the main characters in the book are threefold, though there are other supporting characters as well. There is Emperor Palpatine himself and Darth Vader, who take the role as sort of our villainous protagonists, in that we follow their point of view fairly often.
Okay, I was going to ask that because it's rare when we get to see Palpatine's point of view and what his motivations are. So
yeah, we mostly are interpreting Palpatine's actions through the lens of Darth Vader.
Yeah,
but we do get a few things directly from Palpatine's point of view. And then the other less villainous protagonist of the book is Cham Syndulla, the leader of the Free Ryloth movement, who featured originally in the Clone Wars and is also a character in Rebels.
Is that Hera's father?
Yes, the father of Hera, leader of Phoenix Squadron.
He's got a bumpy head. He's got a big bumpy Twi'lek head.
He's a Twi'lek.
Yeah.
And so he partnered with Mace Windu to free Ryloth from the Separatists during the Clone Wars. Then, during the early Imperial period, he fell afoul of the new Imperial authorities, started the Free Ryloth, revived the Free Ryloth movement into more of a cell-based resistance movement. But before they could really join the Rebel Alliance as a whole, due to the results of this novel, they are crushed. Mm-hmm. But his plan in this novel is bold: the assassination of Emperor Palpatine himself.
Ooh. And what's his plan? How can you... I mean, at this point, does he know that Palpatine is a Sith practitioner? Because I believe at this point the galaxy at large just thinks that Palpatine is a devious old man, not a lightning-wielding, hash-slinging slasher.
Well, the original goal is not directly the assassination of Palpatine. Cham is trying to lure some kind of high-ranking Imperial official to Ryloth and then blow up the Star Destroyer that they're on. He does so by ratcheting up the pressure, hitting shipments, pressuring a contact he has inside the Empire to provide him targets to hit. Mm-hmm. He's trying for a high-profile assassination and resistance movement. However, so angry at these setbacks and sensing a disturbance in the Force, arriving rather than his intended target is Palpatine and Darth Vader himself. And of course, many people in Cham's inner are just like, oh, this is the friggin' Emperor, we have to not attack him. And Cham is like, perfect
opportunity.
We can decapitate the Empire itself. And I think he is not wrong in the fact that if Palpatine dies, the Empire fragments, as we see when Palpatine actually dies and the Empire fragments. If Darth Vader is alive, he probably would have seized control and maintained control of large chunks of it. But if he kills them both, well, then we're down to people like Mos Amida and Grand Moff Tarkin.
Right, we've gotten rid of our figureheads. It's the same idea of if we get Hitler and Himmler, then they will all go down. Or Goebbels, or... That's my extent of World War II. Mussolini. No, that's... I'm going to stop now.
Yeah, so our plots in the novel, so it is, you see more of the dynamic between Darth Vader and Palpatine in their uneasy power alliances to Lords of the Sith. they're still a little bit uneasy in the current alliance. I believe this was currently maybe set slightly after the events of Kenobi.
Is their alliance ever easy? Do they ever have like a kind kinship?
Oh no, never.
Yeah.
Palpatine has this fake, kindly old mentor thing going on, but they both know it's a ruse. But he's too powerful for Darth Vader to call him out on. Palpatine has to learn a certain amount of, at least, that Vader is not his servant, yes, but is also a Lord of the Sith in his own right. So that explores that whole dynamic where there's this constant worry between any Sith master if his apprentice will kill him. And Vader does contemplate trying to kill him several times in the novel, and then finally usually he comes across each time on the fact that either I won't succeed or there's still too much for me to learn yet, as is the toxic relationship between all Sith masters and apprentices. But the primary plot of the novel, it's told through several points of view, rapid point of view changes, tense, political and interpersonal action. But probably the two core, incidents that the book is built around are Cham Syndulla's attempt to blow up the Star Destroyer that the Emperor and Vader are on with a complicated boarding action. Vader's attempts to stop the Star Destroyer from being blown up by killing a lot of people with his lightsaber. And Palpatine attempting to hide his Force abilities from everyone, even though he can't allow himself to be killed. So he's a company member of his Royal Guard, who are the only people who are allowed to see him as he is. So we do learn that one of the members of his Royal Guard is a former clone, a member of Clone Legion, and that others are newer.
That's fascinating. I've always been enthralled by the Royal Guard. Favorite color is red. Very mysterious in their goings-ons that was explored in Legends and has now all but been wiped. So
and here they're not just dressed in like their formal red robes, but they have the electro pikes, but they also have blasters, and they have they are military operatives. It's like the Swiss Guard. They look sort of silly and everything, but they also are carrying fully automatic weapons. So
to see them do anything is my dream at this point. Give me a cartoon where the Royal Guard have to protect Palpatine, and I will. Because again, I cannot read.
So, but this novel might be for you, and you also see more Royal Guard if you like to see more than more in action. There's some protecting one of Palpatine's pleasure yachts that Lando steals in the Lando comic.
A pleasure yacht? I don't need to think about the Emperor's pleasure yacht.
No, see, it's he says it's a pleasure yacht. It's actually one of his hidden repositories of Sith artifacts.
Then that's even worse. That's where he gets his pleasure from.
Yeah, he disguises a pleasure yacht so that he can have it as a secret Sith repository. Because everything that Palpatine does is a secret Sith repository.
I don't need to hear about any of Emperor Palpatine's Sith suppository.
I think we can move on.
Yes.
Yeah, so we get an interesting look into the relationship between Vader and Palpatine. And then we get a lot of information about Cham Syndulla and how bitter he is about the death of his wife, how he is estranged from his daughter, and he now has sort of this potentially carrying on an affair with his lieutenant, Isfal, who is a former Twi'lek slave, who's also a serial killer. She just goes out at night sometimes, and she finds Imperials that she wants to kill, and she kills them because she used to be hidden by it's like this. It's presented as this compulsion. She has a specific place she goes. She has a specific method she likes to use. It's very much like in the MO of a serial killer.
Interesting. I definitely need to get into that.
Yeah, but you don't feel that bad. But I mean, she's fairly undiscriminatory in who she wants to kill, and I think this is just showing the damage done to the society by the occupation of the Empire. But then we see her hunting for a victim, and she's interrupted when she sees another Twi'lek slave girl about to, be in a dangerous situation. So she saves her, which does involve, getting to punch a bunch of Imperial people, and then puts her in a safe house, and then just, lets her leave, even though her bloodlust is unsated. So we see her continually pushing to do the more extreme actions that result in the more Imperial deaths throughout the novel, with Cham still holding on to some of these higher ideals of we are better than the Empire, and we are that, and then his lieutenants around him saying, you have to do what needs to be done. So it's also this tension between freedom fighter and terrorist, but then we do see the utter brutality of the other side. So Cham's plan is largely a success in that he does manage to blow up the Star Destroyer. And blowing up a whole Star Destroyer is actually pretty impressive. But the Emperor and Vader are able to escape and fall onto the planet of Ryloth into one of the uncharted wilderness areas where it's super dangerous. There are creatures around every corner to kill them. but they're two Lords of the Sith,
Mm-hmm.
with some of the Imperial Guard still around. Even they're not invulnerable, though, because then Cham diverts all of his resources and aerial strikes to trying to find the crashed ship and kill the Emperor before he can be rescued, because the Emperor is keeping his visit a secret. No one else knows that the Emperor and Darth Vader are on the planet. They just thought it was a routine visit. So they're obviously very upset that their Star Destroyer got blown up, but no one knows that the Emperor himself has now crashed onto the planet.
So they can't call for reinforcements.
Yeah, because that would reveal their location. So they're each trying to hide the fact that they're there. And Cham's trying to kill the Emperor and Vader, but he's trying not to tell too many of his own people who they're trying to kill too, because they either get freaked out or the information might leak back to his contacts in the Imperials. So yeah, there's a whole subplot with this primary spy that works for Cham and the ways that Cham puts the screws on him. So you see this, just the whole novel is filled with a series of unhealthy relationships. It's probably one of the defining characteristics. The unhealthy dynamic between the Emperor and Vader, and how Palpatine continues to try to force him to eliminate any vestiges of Anakin Skywalker and truly embrace his role as Lord of the Sith. Vader's utter hatred for Palpatine, but recognition of his power. The way in which the Imperial Guard are treated as expendable tools by Palpatine, which is even driven further home by the fact that the leader of the Guard that survives the attack is a former clone. He does not survive the events of the novel, unfortunately. Damn. Not many people that are around Palpatine or Vader survive the events of this novel.
Yeah, and you would imagine so. I mean, if they need to keep their whereabouts and abilities a secret.
Yeah, there is in fact a whole village that Palpatine orders Vader to kill, because someone from the village may have seen him use the Force. So he makes Vader, and they have the communication device once they've defeated Cham's gunship. So one of the final acts of the novel is Palpatine instructing Vader to go slaughter an entire village in a deliberate callback to his slaughtering of the Sand People village.
Tusken Raiders, please.
I'm sorry, I won't use the pejorative term made by the Tatooine, though that is what Anakin called them himself.
Well, if Anakin calls them Sand People, are you just going to start killing younglings?
Yeah, and then Vader actually doesn't want to do it because he says it's unnecessary. He's like, let's use their communication thing and go. Because they don't know who they are. This random village of Ryloth villagers, no idea he's the Emperor, so they just invite them into the village and feed them and are interested in how Vader looks like. It's like, this guy in a prosthetic, and he's helping his elderly relative, and Palpatine makes Vader kill all of them, just to prove to him that he's a Lord of the Sith, and Vader does it, and it sort of cements again this power relationship between them, and the fact that Vader cannot refuse Palpatine anything.
Vader is a weapon. He is a honed blade of light plasma. And he used to execute.
Well, and that's what Palpatine wants him as, but Vader does have his own thoughts and feelings and preferences, and he does save Palpatine's life several times. He could have left him to die several times in the novel, but he saves him. Palpatine could have let Vader die several points, but at one point he breaks out the Sith lightning on these series of large creatures that they're trapped underground with, just to save Vader.
And for Palpatine, it makes sense because he needs some figurehead. He needs some symbol. He can't be the evil Force user because it'll put such a large target on his head.
Yeah, so he needs this enforcer. And in fact, in most of the media set between the Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, it is all about Palpatine trying to hone Vader into a better weapon, trying to grow him into Lord of the Sith. He would have preferred Anakin Skywalker without the prosthetics, but then so he does everything he can with the non-ideal now servant to make him into the best apprentice and enforcer he can. And Vader largely rises to the challenge.
I did see in the canon schematics of Darth Vader's suit that it's, designed to be sized differently so that he is clumsy. It's designed to be...
that's the old canon.
Okay,
gotcha. So in the new canon, it is uncomfortable for him, and then he then redesigns large parts of the suit after his first mission with it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that is also good, leaning back into his role as a tinker. He was always a technical expert, and so he didn't lose that knowledge just by becoming Darth Vader. He just doesn't use it as much because he's a lord now. But he does fix issues with his suit continually in some of that expanded universe. So this leans less into Palpatine using physical means to control and make Anakin Skywalker angry, and more into this psychological manipulation and codependence they have going on.
and always maintaining that he is a dark force of death.
But he calls him my friend all the time, even though they are not friends, and both of them know they're not friends. But Vader has to pretend.
I think Palpatine might actually be honest in because I don't know if Palpatine has any friends. I could see that relationship being, out of all of my subordinates, Vader's the one who I can at least be myself with. Whereas Vader, it's a much more confused relationship because it didn't start with Revenge of the Sith. It's something that, as Maul put it, Vader was groomed into since he was a child. So you have a very deep, lifelong manipulative relationship that has been affecting Vader long before he was actually Vader.
Certainly, yeah. And then to go back to the novel and about the unhealthy relationships, definitely showing how this oppression, destroys healthy relationships too. There's not really any depiction of any kind of pure. There's relationship. There's Cham Syndulla with second in command, and she obviously has a thing for him, but he's still hung up on his dead wife. His second in command is a serial killer who can't really relate to people. The only person she has a connection with is this girl that she saves. Cham has a contact inside the Imperial that feeds him information, but that guy's just doing it to undercut his superior so he can take her place. So eventually he wants to crush Cham, but then Cham blackmails him. It's like, oh, you thought that you had the upper hand here. No, it's actually me. So there's not a single healthy relationship depicted in the novel in any way. No one is happy with each other. No one is just living out their lives. Everyone is in this state of constant fear and paranoia about everyone else in the novel. So it has this oppressive Sith feel to it. Like no one is comfortable. There's this war on, who's going to be discovered when. And the novel proceeds at a fair clip. We don't linger a lot. Like we'll cut from one scene, discovering the Emperor's going to leave and then they arrive. We don't. It's if you're looking for a slower, more contemplative look, it's not really that. This is a fairly action-packed novel, so fairly brutal stuff happens. But if you like to see, buddy evil cop Darth Vader and Palpatine cutting their way through the wilderness and doing Sith stuff that does explore the twisted psychological bond between them. This is for you. If you want to get a detailed description of a Star Destroyer blowing up and all the technical stuff that had to happen to do that and a complex boarding action for some sci-fi space action, this novel has that great. It's a depiction of how an insurgency can strike back against a larger target. And if you liked Cham Syndulla, either in the Clone Wars or the Rebels, and you want to see how did he go from this idealistic freedom fighter as depicted in The Bad Batch and Clone Wars to this disillusioned and cynical old man who barely even listens to his own family in Rebels. Well, this bridges the gap nice and how many people the close to him that Darth Vader personally kills.
And if you want an alternative for those of you who don't like to read, might I recommend the Force Unleashed video game, because it deals with relationships between dark side users and how they're quite manipulative, including Vader and the Emperor. And you also pull down a Star Destroyer, but not in any sort of technical way. You just pull it down because a blind Jedi commands you to pull it out of the sky. And that is my recommendation.
Yeah, so then we get a more realistic take on the Force here. But
yes.
You see two Sith working together and sort of how terrifying that is to the average person looking at them and how dangerous they are. And you also see how the bureaucratic tension of the Empire continues to cripple it in ways that you see in a lot of different media, how if Palpatine had just been a little more interested in having a facade of a positive society, but his insistence on ruling with an iron fist damages the ability of the Empire to actually be an effective means of government, which is the fate of all fascists, by the way. So fascism is inherently inefficient as well as being morally repugnant.
There's your ethical lesson of the day.
Yeah. So yes, if you want a novel about two fascists fighting their way through the wilderness, wondering if they should die or not, while a resistance terrorist tries to blow them up and you really actually want them to succeed, give this novel a go. And it's some great world building about the Middle Imperial period and as it sees the final remnants of the Clone Wars being closed out. Because a lot of the ways that Cham Syndulla uses tactics from the Clone Wars to attack.
And, Palpatine was the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
so
he ran both sides.
He knows. So once I get over my reading obstacle, I'd definitely like to check this out, because delving into the relationship between Vader and Palpatine is always entertaining. even in the briefest moments, like when we see him when we see them interact in Kenobi, and Vader's just playing go full gung ho against Kenobi, and Palpatine's like, do you think your personal vendetta here is getting in the way of you just gaining power and being a, overall badass slash my personal servant? So you see very deftly how Palpatine manipulates Vader away from his personal cause so that he can come back into the fold and be an effective weapon.
Yeah, if you liked that scene in Kenobi and that whole thing, this book is pretty much exploring that in detail, along with Star Destroyers blowing up, a nascent rebellion, killing Imperials, blackmail, murder.
Serial killers.
Yeah, but I mean, is she a serial killer or is she an oppressed person? It's this whole thing. Terrorist or freedom fighter? Serial killer or a person trying to liberate her planet? Both? Neither? That's up for you to decide, and this certainly does not give you any easy ethical answers to what's the best way to resist an empire, which the answer Cham Syndulla lands on is blow a bunch of shit up until someone listens to me or until they're all dead.
Yeah, the basic pull them out of the sky philosophy.
All right, well, that was Lords of the Sith. Join us next time. We will talk about the novel Thrawn and the reintroduction of one of the most interesting Imperial characters.
Until then.
Thank you so much for listening. We've been talking Star Wars. We'll see you sometime soon in a galaxy right here.